And first, I want to start off by thanking our AAA Retire team for doing this program with us. Tonight, we have Joseph Knudsen, who has specialized in working with retirees to secure adequate health insurance and retirement financial planning since 1973. And as Director of Planning, Jody Goss has been in the financial services business for nearly 3 decades and has helped hundreds of individuals and families transition from working to retirement. And now I'll hand it over to them.
Thank you, Jenna. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here. We'll get going. All right. Well, welcome, everyone. Got an exciting workshop for you this evening on Social Security. We want to really extend our gratitude to Jenna and the Blackstone Library for hosting this evening. Hopefully, you're going to get a lot of information and a lot of good takeaway information in tonight's workshop. A little bit about AAA Retire. We've been around since 2003. We're not affiliated with the American Automobile Association. And what that simply means is we're not owned by them, but we were providing a member benefit. We have provided member benefits to AAA since 2003. And since that time, we've expanded to community organizations such as libraries, adult education. In fact, this week we've done 3 libraries and 1 adult education center workshop on this very topic. Obviously, there's a lot of individuals that are interested in it. Joseph and myself, as Jenna spelled out, we have over 6 decades of experience, but as a team, the faculty of AAA Retire is over a century of experience. And it's primarily in this topic of retirement planning. And we know that Social Security for a lot of folks is really important. And it's really important to understand, and there's a good reason for that. Because in the Social Security Handbook, there's some 2,728 rules and literally hundreds of thousands of ways to obtain your benefits as it relates to Social Security retirement. Obviously, we're not going to get into all those rules this evening. In fact, we don't even expect you to remember everything we're going to talk about, because as we go through, we're going to give you opportunities to get some resources. And here's our first one. The 22 need to knows before you apply for your Social Security retirement benefit. Social Security has a lot of great opportunities, but there's some really serious gotchas that if you don't know them, they could have lasting impact on your retirement. And it's more important than ever to get these types of resources, because Social Security as a whole had a Vision 2025, which was to close down local offices throughout the community. And as a result of COVID now, as many of you probably know, those local offices are already closed down. Really, they're pushing folks online or to call centers to try to get answers. And we all know the problem with call centers, especially governmental call centers. Often they get it wrong. In fact, a study was done by the Social Security Administration Office of Inspector General and found that 82% of the time, widow and widowers were given wrong information. At this most important time in their life, they were given erroneous information, which cost them literally tens of thousands of dollars in additional benefits. And consider this, 38% of Americans rely primarily or solely on Social Security for their retirement. And with life expectancies to be some 20 to 30 years in retirement, you really need to have a sustainable, durable plan. And often Social Security is a critical aspect of that. But let's talk about applying. Joseph, can you help us to know when can you start to collect your benefits?
Well, when Social Security first started, the average age was 66. And so 65 was when you started. And everyone started then. And of course, some people would live a lot longer than 66. And it was designed to give them an income no matter how old they were. But now there's a full retirement age, which we'll talk about what the meaning of full retirement age is, but depends on when you were born. If you were born 1954 or before, your full retirement age is 66. And you can see the chart all the way up to if you're born after 1960, the full retirement 67. Now, that's when your full calculated benefit starts. No matter when you start, if you can still start at age 62 if you want, but you're going to get a reduction in your benefits. And this is a reduction anywhere from, you can see 25 to 30% of reduction, and that's going to stay for the rest of your life. So yes, you can get it early, but you'll get a lot less money over your lifetime.
Well, Joseph, can you tell us, what does that look like in dollars and cents, this reduction?
We're going to look at a couple of different ways of looking at this. So let's say that at 62, you could get $1,000 a month. Now, even if you did not work another day, even if you just sat and went to the beach, at age 66, if you started, it would be $1,333, and you can see age 70, it would be almost $1,700. So there's a 75% difference just by waiting, and because that's how Social Security, depending on when you start, will calculate your benefits. And so it's important to pay attention because, again, this is a lifetime impact.
So can we look at another example here?
Sure. So here's a 61 and a 62-year-old, and we have a crystal ball. We're assuming they're going to live to 93. Now, if this 61 and 62-year-old both started at age 62, you can see they're collecting $737,000 over their lifetime. Now, let's just take a moment to pause here and look at that. That's a lot of money. At age 66, if they started, it's $864,000, and almost $1 million if they waited to 70. That's not always the best thing for people, but you can see what a difference it'll be. It's about $250,000. So when you're planning a retirement, when you're looking ahead, this consistent income is the basis of what we start with when we're looking at whether you can have a sustainable and durable retirement.
So how does this happen? Can you explain how this happens, this waiting?
Sure. The way that, so you have your full retirement. Let's assume it's 66. So if you are, if you get a year early, you start at 65 instead of 66, they're going to discount your benefits by 6% for the rest of your life. 60 and 63, it's another 6%, and so forth all the way down to 62. On the other hand, if you wait a year, instead of 66, you wait till 67, you're going to get 8% more for the rest of your life, and 68, 69, 70, all the way to 70. After 70, they will not increase it anymore. But that's, 8% is a pretty good rate of return considering that goes through the rest of your life. And it is something to consider. When we look at retirement, one of the things that we look at is that the decision to retire is not the same as the decision of when to take Social Security. And we're going to get more into that. And I think Jody has some things to talk about with that too.
No, that's a really good point, Joseph. I think it's worth bearing out. But let me just understand this right. So if you don't collect at 62, you wait till your full retirement, it's a guaranteed 6% increase. From your full retirement to 70, it's a guaranteed 8% increase?
8% increase each year for the rest of your life, yes.
Wow. Now, I know a lot of folks like to do this crossover calculation, and I know you have an engineer background, but can you talk to us about that? Yep.
When we did these live, I'd always have an engineer who'd come up with a spreadsheet, and he'd show me exactly, the optimum time. But if you look at this graph here, you'll see there's lines 62, 65, 66, 69, and no matter when you start your Social Security, you can see these lines come together right at about age 81, 82, 83. And after that, if you live longer than that, you would have been better off waiting. But the fact is it doesn't matter when you start. If you're going to live the average age, you're going to end up with the same amount of money.
Yeah, with longer life expectancy, this is really something to consider. Yet despite this, Joseph, what do most people do?
Well, half the people sign up before age 62. They just sign up as fast as they can. 3/4 before full retirement age, only 3% wait to 70. When we work with people, which we do, and we look at when the best time is for them to take their Social Security, because it differs by person. The fact is that about almost half the people here are better off waiting till 70 if they can afford to, and yet only 3% wait. And this is just money that actually goes back to the Social Security system, because people are not they're not getting what they could, and it can mean tens of thousands of dollars to them.
Interesting. So what if a person comes to a workshop like this, they've started their benefit, and now they realize they shouldn't have done that? Can they change their mind?
They can change their mind. If within the first year, if for whatever reason, maybe you stop collecting, you stop working, and maybe you get a job that you didn't expect to get. Whatever the reason is, in the first year, you can stop, tell Social Security you're stopping, and if you want, you can pay back all the money that you got. It's like an interest-free loan, and then you can start again whenever you want. You can also suspend it. You can say, okay, I can't afford to pay that money back, but I'm going to stop collecting, and that 8% or that 6% that we've been talking about starts affecting your future collections, and then when you start again, you will get more because you did that.
Interesting. So there's no penalty, no interest for paying it back if you do it in the first year.
Yep.
Oh, that's great. So obviously, it's important to really think that through. You pay it back, you get an automatic 6 or 8% bump in your benefit, and as long as you wait, you get those additional credits. But let's switch gears here for just a minute. Let's talk about something that recently happened, and many of you have benefited from, and many of you will be affected by. There are 2 tax acts and spending acts that recently happened. One went into effect in January. One occurred a little later this year. But the first act is the Secure Act. The Secure Act, and we'll talk about how that affected retirees, is that it pushed off the age that you have to take your minimum distribution from 70 and a half to 72. Unfortunately, if you were already 70 and a half last year, you have to continue to take your minimum distribution, except for this year because the CARES Act postponed it. The other thing that it did is if you're past 70 and a half and you have earned income, you could continue to make contributions to your IRA. If you're married and only one of you has earned income, the earning income spouse can make their contributions for both of them. The other thing is a nice tax benefit is the ability to make direct contributions to charities from your IRA, which is a nice tax planning strategy. So that's the good news. The bad news is for most non-spouse beneficiaries, it compressed the time that they have to withdraw or deplete those accounts, those retirement accounts, both traditional and Roth, to a 10-year maximum period. So it really compressed how quickly those accounts have to be depleted. The goal was to generate about $15 billion of additional revenue, which seems like a lot of money, but it's not when you compare it to the next act we're going to talk about, the CARES Act. The CARES Act, which many of you have benefited from, you got those checks or gift cards in the mail. Some of you business owners received a loan through the PPP program. Other benefits have been generated as a result of it, the increase in unemployment benefits, the waiver of required minimum distribution this year. A couple other things occurred with it. You could take up to $100,000 in IRA or 401k money and avoid that 10% tax penalty if you're younger than 59 and a half. You can borrow up to $100,000 from your 401k. Just the gotcha there is if you borrow the money and you get fired or laid off, that will come due as a tax bill. So you just need to be careful of that. But here's the thing that it did that we really need to be considering, especially if you're a retiree. It added about 2.4 trillion, yes, trillion with a T, of additional debt to the government. CARES Act 2.0 is expected to add another $1 to $2 trillion of additional debt. So think about this. in a rapid period of time, in fact, one of the most rapid periods of times in history, the government, US government, and international governments have taken on unprecedented amount of debt. Now, what does this mean to a retiree? Well, what it means to the government and therefore to the retiree is they cannot afford to have interest rates go up. And interest rates play a key role for a retiree. What this really means is retirees need to look for ways to generate higher rates of return without taking on more risk, because it's likely for the foreseeable future we might see 1% or less rates of return on traditional vehicles that you would purchase, such as CDs, even bonds, government bonds, for example. So it's creating a real challenge for retirees. That's the reason why that 6 and 8% that Joseph talked about is an incredible rate of return, and why planning for your Social Security is really important. So let's talk about how your benefits are generated. Some folks think that it's your best 5 years or your best 10 years, but actually what Social Security looks at is your 35-year work record. They look at that 35-year work record and they take the averages and use that to determine your benefit. But let's look at an example. Let's say that you're 62 in 2019, you had 31 years of employment at $40,000 a year, and you decide to quit your job to retire, or perhaps you're laid off, unfortunately. Well, let's look at what that would generate potentially in Social Security. Because you had 4 years of zeros, and we know what zeros do to averages, they bring them down, and you started early and locked in that lifetime penalty that Joseph talked about, your net benefit in this example will be about $1,000. If, however, you could work just 4 more years, fill in those zeros, bring up the average, eliminate that lifetime penalty, you'd bring your benefit up to about $1,500 instead of about $1,000. Well, you may wonder, is it really worth working that additional 4 years? I'd really like to quit my job. Well, let's look at what $500 is worth in retirement. Wall Street has a rule of thumb, which is you shouldn't withdraw more than 4% from your savings, retirement savings, if you want it to last the rest of your life. That rule is actually being stressed, and it's more likely to be around 3%. But let's use the 4% rule for a minute. If we look at 4%, how much would you have to have in a lump sum to get that extra $500 a month the rest of your life? Well, you'd need about $150,000 in retirement savings. If we looked at a 3% rule, it's closer to $200,000. Now, this worker was making $40,000 in 4 years. It's impossible for them to have accumulated that money. This really bears out why it's so critically important to have a strategy for retirement, to balance retirement assets with Social Security benefits, to have a plan or a roadmap to success. And I just want to say it again, what Joseph said earlier, claiming your Social Security and retiring are not necessarily commensurate. If I want a windfall of cash tonight, I might seriously consider retiring, but I'm not old enough to collect benefits from Social Security. So just because you retire doesn't mean you need to automatically collect. So that's why strategy is so important. But let's talk about another risk that retirees face. It's called a risk called sequence of returns. And what sequence of returns is it takes into consideration returns on your investment, either while you're saving for retirement or whether you're spending for retirement. So we're going to look at 2 examples at how they work, one while you're saving, one while you're distributing. We're going to have the same starting amount, $100,000, but we're going to see the impact of the difference between savings and distributing. And really, this bears out the difference of the way you should plan for saving for retirement as opposed to planning for distributing or taking your money for retirement. So we'll start out here first with savings. Once again, we have the same starting balance, $100,000. And if you'll notice here, we have the same returns, they're just in a different sequence. So we have Jim and Mary over here start out great returns early in their saving history. We have Bob and Barbara, poor Bob and Barbara, start out with terrible returns early in their saving history. Jim and Mary had their same demise at the latter part of their saving history, but at the end of the day, they both averaged 5.4%. The interesting thing too is as long as they were saving, the outcome was exactly the same, $285,000 at the end of the day. So as we can see here, sequence of returns, if you have the intestinal fortitude to just hold it out, don't get overly emotional if the markets go down, at the end of the day, the outcome is essentially the same. But let's take this exact same example, and now instead of saving for retirement, we're going to be using our $100,000 to live on. We're going to use that 4% withdrawal rate, $100,000 starting balance. Jim and Mary, same good fortune early in retirement. Bob and Barbara, same misfortune early in retirement. Because they're not saving, but they're actually locking in their losses as they're taking money out of their account. As we can see here, Jim and Mary average 5.4. Their money lasts the rest of their life, and they actually have a positive value in year 2021. Bob and Barbara, on the other hand, because of those negative losses early, ran out of money early in retirement. Obviously, we can't predict what the markets are going to do, but what we can do is create a durable, sustainable, predictable retirement plan that will help address things like this. And this is what a plan might look like. Dollars to cover your monthly expenses. And that's why we start with Social Security, because Social Security, as Joseph said, is usually the bedrock. It is the one lifetime income that a retiree can count on. Also having money for emergencies. By having money to pay your bills, having for emergencies, it allows you to have dollars to grow a lot over the long haul and not react emotionally to those ups and downs of the market, which enables you to keep pace with inflation, replenish the income need that will grow in time, which probably you've already seen over the last even few months, your grocery bill go up. So now you have a nice predictable plan that you'll be able to endure whatever trials may come your way in retirement. Well, this is only one issue that we've identified. We have other issues that we've identified in our ebook, How to Avoid Retirement Risks and Uncover Unique Opportunities. Once again, at the end of the workshop, we're going to show you how to claim this ebook that we've authored that uncovers other risks and opportunities that retirees face. But let's talk about something that a lot of folks ask about. Can I work and get Social Security at the same time? Joseph, can you help us with that?
Sure. So yes, the answer is you can work and get Social Security at the same time. You remember that you can get a Social Security as early as age 62, but the Social Security system has set up, they're encouraging people to work because if they work, they're putting money into the Social Security system. So if you are under full retirement age, here's where, again, where that particular date is important, and you're earning more than $18,000, then out of anything beyond that, for every $2 you earn, $1 gets taken away from your benefits. If you're making enough, you may not get any benefits at all, in which case it wouldn't make any sense to start collecting. You wouldn't collect anything. The year you turn your full retirement, during the beginning of that year, that number changes to 48,000, and it's $1 out of every 3. Many people will start just before full retirement because they're making less than that. And once you hit full retirement, you can make as much as you want, and Social Security is not going to penalize you for that.
Well, obviously, this is really good to know. Let me ask a question, Joseph, though. Whenever you start to get your benefit, before you get your benefit, does the Social Security system ask about this?
Well, this happened to me, actually. I went to collect Social Security, and they asked how much my wife was going to make, and I figured she was putting money into a 401k, so that didn't count. So I said she was going to make a certain amount of money. And the fact is that they came back the next year and said, you owe us money, which really surprised me, that $1 out of every two, because I estimated wrong. I didn't understand. So if someone is trying to fool the system and saying, oh, no, I'm only going to make $20,000 or $18,000, they'll catch up to you, and they will eventually take that. You're going to get a surprise, like I did.
So you'll get a big tax bill, or they'll get a reduction in your Social Security benefits.
Yep, we got both, actually. Yeah.
So let's talk about what happens when that you have to pay back. Let's look at an example here of Jim. He was 62. He made over the limit and had to pay half of his benefit back to the Social Security system. At 63, he stopped working. So we wonder, did he lose the money he paid back? Well, the answer is no. When he hit full retirement age, he got a bump in his benefit of 3.3%. But Joseph, can you help us understand what is considered income?
So going back for these numbers, is 18,000 or the 48,000? It's wages and self-employed income. So if you're 62 and you're living on distributions from a 401k or interest or just your savings, then you won't have to pay anything out of that $1 out of every two. But again, if you're working for yourself or for someone else, then that's what goes towards that.
So primarily wages or net income if you're self-employed. So
Yes.
We may think, oh, I made it to my full retirement age. I don't have to worry about taxes anymore. Unfortunately, that's not the case. If you are single and make less than $25,000, you're not going to have to worry about it. But if you make more than $25,000 or more than $32,000 if you're married, half of your Social Security benefit will be federally taxable. If you're single and make more than $34,000 or married and make more than $44,000, 85% of your Social Security benefit will be federally income taxable. If you make more than $75,000 as a single or $100,000 as a married couple, then it's going to be subject to state income tax as well here in Connecticut. Now think about that. Can a single person really live on $25,000, even $34,000? Or can a married couple live on $32,000 or $44,000? It's quite unlikely, especially here in Connecticut, especially when we consider how it's calculated. They take your adjusted gross income, that's that net wages or net self-employment, retirement distributions from traditional retirement accounts, non-ROS, interests, non-taxable interest on your municipal bonds, and get this, half of your Social Security benefit is pulled into the calculation to determine if the benefit you paid a tax to get is going to be taxable. So obviously, it's important to do some planning if you can to reduce, maybe not eliminate, but reduce the tax on that benefit. But let's switch gears here. Let's talk about how spouses are treated by Social Security. A spouse can collect on your record even if they never worked. Like Joseph said, whenever it was initially established, things were different. When Social Security was established, there was a primary wage earner and a spouse that stayed home and took care of the kids. Well, obviously, that's not the case anymore. Generally today, there's two wage earners. But at minimum, you can collect at least half of your spouse's benefit if it's greater than your own. If you have your own benefit, obviously you could collect your own benefits. If you were married for 10 years, divorced for 2 years, you could collect on an ex-spouse's benefit or their record, and they don't even have to know about it. In fact, they don't even have to be collecting. As long as they're eligible to collect, you could collect up to half of their benefit. When one spouse dies, the surviving spouse can start to collect a widow or widower spouse as early as age 60. Now, this is where the Social Security Administration got it wrong 82% of the time. But if If that surviving spouse is 60 or over, they could start to collect a widow or widower's benefit, not impact their own record, let it grow, and then switch over to their own record at some point in the future. Now, one thing to think about is all of these are still subject to those wage tests that Joseph talked about. So there's still some planning that needs to be done. But if two spouses are collecting, the survivor gets the larger of the two checks and a $255 burial benefit. Now, this is critically important to plan out, especially if you're married. And the female component of a marriage needs to think about the fact that they're likely to live 7 years longer than the male. So the male want to do one thing, but it is important that you decide as a couple as to what to do whenever it comes to collecting Social Security benefits. Well, let's talk about another program. And this, in our example, it'll really bear out what we're just talking about. Joseph, can you help us with this restricted benefit provision?
Yeah, sure. So the way the restricted benefit provision works is, and this is only if somebody is born before 1954. I'm not going to ask everyone how old they are. I'm just going to assume there's at least one person here. And the way this works is if you're born before 1954, it's similar to the survivor's benefit. The person who was born before 1954 can wait until they're 66, and if their spouse is collecting, they can collect half of their spouse's benefit, and they can wait until they're older to collect their own. So it's sort of like a double dipping. Here's an example. So, and this was an example that was in Kiplinger's. So Christine, she started her Social Security, and she's collecting $762. Joseph, he decided that instead of getting his own benefit, he would get half of hers and wait. Maybe he was going to wait anyway. And he waited all the way to 70, and he started collecting $3,400. Now, what's important here is that if he had started in his full retirement age, he would have been collecting $2,615. That difference of $800 is going to be reflected for the rest of his life. And if he predeceases Christine, she's then going to be collecting more for her whole life. So this waiting is going to reflect itself through 2 lives. Plus, he did collect 50% of hers. I did this. I did a restricted benefit. It worked out very well.
The other thing I think it's important to know is whenever he starts to collect this, she can get a bump in her own benefit because she can start collecting a spousal benefit off of Joseph. So a nice planning technique here. What about if somebody's divorced, Joseph?
Very similar. So here, Julie was married more than 10 years, and she can get a spousal benefit on her ex-husband's record. Not only does he not need to know that this is happening, but if her ex-husband got remarried, there might be somebody else collecting on his record. It doesn't really matter. It's not like you're splitting a pot of money. It's just the way that Social Security calculates how much you're getting. So she gets the $1,100 a month. She then was working. She waited until 70, and at 70, she's collecting this money, and now at 70, she can get her full, including all those 8%, she can get $3,100 for the rest of her life.
So once again, obviously some planning is important. That there's that age of January 1st, 1954. But even if you were born after that, I think these examples really bear open the point of planning, especially if you're married. Now, once again, as we said, we don't expect you to remember all of this. So we have our nice resources, making smart decisions for claiming if you're married, if you're widowed, or if you're divorced. You'll be able to claim these at the end of the workshop, also with an email that'll be coming out. Now, Joseph, can you tell us what else should a person know whenever it comes to retirement planning?
Well, we've been dancing around a little bit, but you know, if two people are especially in the beginning of their retirement, they're both collecting. Obviously, one's going to collect more than the other, and when one of them passes away, that lesser amount disappears. Whichever one is getting whichever amount was more, that's what they're going to end up getting. And with two earner families, it's very often you need both incomes in order to sustain the retirement. So you can actually put together a solution that has some insurance involved that will help money come into the retirement if one person passes away early, basically. And
So I think it's important to note, as you always talk about, is that when one spouse dies, it may increase the cost because that spouse may have been doing things around the house that now the survivor has to pay for. So planning for the loss of that early, especially in a modern, modern couple society, is important to talk about. What else is important to know?
Well, of course, the other thing that can happen, especially especially if it happens early in a retirement, can create significant stress, and that's some kind of a chronic or critical illness. And there are also strategies that we can explore with you if you're interested. That can put some plans in place to deal with that, either legal or insurance. There's different ways of doing it, and it's worth looking at so that you're protecting that retirement.
Absolutely. This could be one of the largest expenses that a retiree would face. But
Yeah.
Joseph, can you help us understand how and when should a person apply for their benefits?
So right now, it used to be that you could either go to online or go to the Social Security office. The Social Security office isn't open right now. So you go online to SSA, Social Security Administration.gov, and it leaves some time because they have quite a few questions to try and figure out if you're really you. You don't want someone else to get your benefit, and it'll tell you exactly what you're entitled to. And 3 to 4 months ahead, you can say this is what I want. And especially if it's something complicated like a widow's benefit or a restricted benefit, you might want to make sure you know exactly what you're doing. And they will call you, and they will help confirm that, what you're doing and that you understand what you're doing. And whatever month you are going to start, the benefit doesn't start until the month after. So if you start in December, you're going to get your first check in January. So don't forget to plan for that. And in my case, they just gave me wrong advice. Actually, they told me that the restricted benefit didn't work the way it did. And my wife was with me, and she figured they were right and I was wrong because that's how things work when you're married. And we went and did some homework and went back. And the second time we talked to him, he said, "Yeah, that's how it works." So he must have done some homework too. So it's important. The lesson here is it's important for you to have done enough homework so that you're not relying on them, because they can the person who gave me the information wasn't trying to give me bad information. He was trying to help me, but he was wrong. And it would have made tens of thousands of dollars difference in my case.
So important note here is they're not planners. They just look at their screens and they see, well, you could get more by doing this, but they don't understand necessarily strategies to get you to your most benefit. And that's really
Right.
where a retirement coach comes in. A retirement coach could help review your potential benefits, both your Social Security and your Medicare, estimate those benefits to make sure that you're getting what you deserve. Also coordinate benefits with your spouse, especially if you're married, because life expectancies are longer than ever before. If you're already taking Social Security, try to figure out how to reduce that taxation, maybe not eliminate it, but reduce it. So you may wonder, how can I do this? How can I understand the tens of thousands of ways to potentially take a benefit? Well, we're offering those folks that are with us this evening, as a result of our sponsorship here at the library, a complimentary benefit analysis. It'll take you or you and your spouse, if you're married, take your specific situation, run it through a number of algorithms, and give you your best 4 strategies for taking your benefits. What we've been able to do is help folks uncover tens of thousands of dollars of additional benefits because of the planning and the planning techniques that the software provides. In fact, in our mind, we think you simply can't retire without at least getting this report, this roadmap, if you will, to your future and the future benefits of your Social Security benefit. We're not the only one who offers it. Kiplinger's does too, at a cost of $125. But once again, as a result of showing up this evening, you can get this complimentary at no charge or obligation. So just in summary, a retirement income coach can help you determine how much income you'll need for retirement, help you coordinate your retirement savings with your retirement Social Security benefits. Once again, with an understanding that collecting doesn't necessarily mean retiring. Understanding the difference between accumulation for retirement and distributing, saving for retirement and spending retirement dollars, totally different approaches. Organizing finances to create an action plan to help you get the most from your retirement savings and the most from your Social Security benefit. So once again, everyone that was with us will have the opportunity to claim our 22 need to knows, claiming guide for married, widowed, divorced, our ebook on how to avoid risks of retirement and uncover opportunities. You could get those at AAAretire.com/reports. That's AAAretire.com/reports. Just click off the report you want, submit it, obviously with your name and information, or you'll be getting an email. You just click on the button 2 and you'll be able to claim those reports as well. So with that being said, we're going to open up to any questions. If you could try to chat them in, that would be great. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here.
Also raise your hand if you want. We can unmute you.
As far as, Wendy, but just one caveat to the questions is that if they're too personal in nature, we're going to respect your privacy, number one. Number two, we're generally general questions. Specific questions we could take offline. But go ahead, Wendy.
Okay, unemployment, is that being counted as your income for that 18,000?
Yes, it is, unfortunately.
Okay, so you can get a lot there.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's not counted though is alimony. So not that that applies to you, Wendy, but that's something that is important to know as well.
Yeah. But yeah, workman's comp or unemployment is considered income, and you know, we've been working with people trying to navigate this, seeing if they can start collecting and collect that. The answer is no. Well, you can, but you'll get penalized.
Good question though.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Guess we did a pretty good job there, Joseph.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do is just, let's see if I can unmute everybody, because some people, I can't see if they're open. If they're,
Why don't we go ahead and leave them on mute and they could just raise their hand. We can see them.
I can't see. Could you
some
see me?
people I can't do it.
Yeah, but it gets a little chaotic if we unmute everyone.
I say something.
Go ahead, iPhone.
All right. My husband is already collecting on the Social Security.
Yep.
And I'm going to turn 62 in January. And I work, and I want to continue to work. I just want to collect on it, Social Security. Now, we both make over the 18,000 that you said before. So is that going to be, what did you say? It was going to be reduced? We're going to have to pay it back? I was confused on that. If I start collecting.
It reduces it. So let's say that you made 20,000 instead of 18. That's $2,000 over. They're going to $1 out of every two. So they're going to take $1,000 off your benefits.
Okay.
And if you make too much more, it just doesn't make sense. They'll take everything.
Well, so should I wait till I'm 67?
Depends on how much you're making. So what
Yeah.
we can do is we can work with you to see when the best time is. The Social Security timing report, that complimentary report,
Yeah.
can calculate what the best thing is for you based on your
Okay.
situation and your husband's situation.
Okay. I like to do that. I like to
Yep.
get that complimentary to see, because my father's saying, take the money now, it's yours. And I'm like, I can't take it now.
Right.
For everybody here, we can help
Yeah.
figure that out and see what
Okay.
the best way is.
Okay. How do we sign up for that then? So you're just gonna
So-
send something?
I'll just share my screen again and we'll look at that. We're going to send something as well, but the website, you could go directly to the website right away if you'd like. It is AAAretire.com/reports.
Okay.
Yep.
Mhm. And then we'll work with you to get that.
That number. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead, Wendy.
Wait.
There you go.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah, could you just talk a little bit more about the CARE thing that started in March of 2020, and then there was another one to the right of that, which I couldn't see because our faces were there.
Sure. So the Secure Act and the CARES Act, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah.
The ones that are 20.
The Secures Act primarily lifted the age for minimum distribution that you're forced to take money out of your retirement to 72 from 70 and a half. It forces individuals that inherit those accounts, most non-spouse beneficiaries, to take it over a maximum of 10 years. The CARES Act was a big spending act, which many of us already received our $1,200 or $2,400, or if we made over certain thresholds, a little bit less. So you've already received some benefits there. If you're self-employed, you receive some loans. There's other benefits. Anyway, the bottom line there is it was an enormous addition to the national debt. And it wasn't just the United States, it was countries around the world, and rightfully so. I mean, it helped prevent a great recession, another great recession. But the reality is because of that, governments around the world, including the US government, cannot afford interest rates to rise because service on that debt will grow exponentially. And what that means to a retiree is when you thought you were going to get 3, 4, 5, 6% in the bank, it's just not going to happen. The governments just can't afford it. So you need to plan for it. That's the bottom line. You just need to plan for that and be realistic, not unrealistically think CDs are going to go back to where they were before. I would love to say that I think that'll happen, but reality is reality. It just doesn't seem like it's a potential. And the Federal Reserve said, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, they do not anticipate anywhere in the near future to raise interest rates again.
Yep. 2023, they said at the very least.
But good question, Wendy. And it's something really important to plan for. It's not something that you can't address. You know, there's definitely ways to address it, but you just have to not be unrealistic about that reality.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Well, thank you all for coming this evening. We'll let you enjoy this
Thank you.
last warmer evening for the next couple of days. I think it's supposed to turn a little chilly on us, but we appreciate your time this evening, and we definitely appreciate the sponsorship of Blackstone and Jenna. Thank you so much for hanging in there with us. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
you.